Oh, he hears me. I know he does. I left my house at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I haven't been back. I mean,
So you're traveling with your sister, the hospice nurse?
Yeah, she's not hospice,
Not
she's
hospice,
home care nurse.
care nurse, sorry.
I'm calling the meeting to order here at 6 o'clock on September 16th, 2025. Could we do the roll call, please?
Certainly. Councilmember DeWillis?
Here.
Councilmember Dowell?
Here.
Councilmember Marks?
Here.
Councilmember Mosley?
Here.
Councilmember Wilden?
Here.
Vice Mayor Coates?
Here.
And Mayor Shaw.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Would everyone present please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next we have a brief summary of current events by the mayor, city council, or city manager. The public body does not propose, discuss, deliberate, or take legal action on any matter brought up during this summary unless the specific matter is properly noticed for legal action.
So I'll start. On September 4th, council met with the airport manager to see the recent airport improvements to the runway. We also had the opportunity to discuss with him some questions and talk about future projects, so that was very informative. I attended an OLLI, Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, lunch and learn presentation by Northern Arizona Healthcare Leadership, and they provided some very encouraging information about hiring and retention of medical staff in the Verde Valley, so that's encouraging. On 9/11, council members attended the Walk of Remembrance at Riverfront Park to honor the 412 public safety personnel that lost their lives on 9/11. And I think we just want to thank the Cottonwood Fire Department for organizing the event. On Friday, September 12th, I attended the Music in the Market event with entertainment by the band The Well-Dressed Wolves. And I just want to remark on it and thank the Parks and Recreation Department for putting on this summer weekly event. It's a free event provided to the community. It was well attended and enjoyed by all on a beautiful summer evening. Also on the topic of Parks and Rec, I want to thank them for launching their new senior activities program at the Cottonwood Recreation Center. This program will provide seniors with a Recreation Center pass access to activities such as games, arts and crafts, movies, group walks, and more. So I think that's a nice addition for our community. I also want to acknowledge the Yavapai Apache Nation for awarding Proposition 202 funding to the city of Cottonwood, which has been used to install a rapid flashing beacon crosswalk at Mingus Union High School to enhance pedestrian safety. And I think most folks would agree that's a very nice addition. And then lastly, today, council and staff attended the State of the County meeting. And this was a good opportunity to gather with other county representatives and hear about the county's performance and plans for the future, including their first ever strategic plan.
On September 10th, Mayor Shaw and I attended the Yavapai County District 3 Town Hall, which was held at the Sedona Fire District Station. It was a chance for county staff to give some valuable updates for the public and get feedback from the public. It was a very good and informative meeting. Also on the 11th of September, the city staff and council held a lunch to recognize Tom Whitmer for his time as acting city manager. I mainly bring this up, I know we've recognized him before, but since Mr. Whitmer hates being recognized in public, it's always fun to keep doing it. And so, once again, we appreciate, the productive work Mr. Whitner has done, and as a council, I think we appreciate the work he did making us feel comfortable, the 5 new council members coming on board last November.
Thank you.
On the way of a public service announcement, which is what I'm going to call it, if you haven't read in the paper, Aaron Mabry was named the new exec for the senior center, and it's just a major, major plus for this community. And so you're going to see the senior center go on to new heights. So thanks to Aaron and everybody involved in making that decision.
So I know there's a proclamation coming up, but I just want to reiterate that September is also Suicide Prevention Month. This is really big. So if you know somebody out there that might be hurting or something like that, let's reach out to them. Let's give them a hand, okay? November 1st, the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition, Walk in My Shoes, big event, hopefully. We'd like people to sign up for this, and it benefits the homeless. And if you have any questions, contact Rhonda Bishop at the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fuentes?
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council. We have the Thunder Valley Rally this weekend. Staff's all in on that. Tickets again are $25 for a single day and $40 for a weekend pass. This year we've created what they call a Daybreaker ticket, where you can get in on Friday before 4, Saturday before 2 p.m. for $15, but it's a no re-entry ticket. Once you're in, you're in. That's the difference between the more expensive ticket. We'll have headliners of Chase McDaniel on Friday and Puddle of Mud on Saturday, so a lot of folks are looking forward to that. Cottonwood Police Department will host our annual National Night Out on Wednesday, October 8th from 4:30 to 7 at the Kids Park on 12th Street. Free family-friendly event, and it's part of a nationwide initiative that fosters community engagement and strengthens partnerships between law enforcement and residents. Be able to meet local officers, celebrate neighborhood unity in a safe, welcoming environment. And then lastly, the Cottonwood Historic Preservation Commission will meet on Wednesday, September 24th at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers.
Okay, thank you. Next, I have a couple of proclamations, the first of which is regarding September 2025 as Ovarian Cancer Month. The proclamation reads, whereas ovarian cancer is the 5th leading cause of cancer-related death among women in the United States, and the American Cancer Society estimates that in 2025, more than 20,000 women will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and approximately 12,700 will die from the disease nationwide. And whereas a woman's lifetime risk of being diagnosed with ovarian cancer is approximately 1 in 91, and whereas early detection and increased awareness are crucial in improving the survival rate, yet symptoms of ovarian cancer are often vague and go unrecognized until the disease has reached advanced stages. And whereas organizations, advocates, survivors, and healthcare professionals are committed to increasing public understanding of signs, symptoms, and risk factors associated with ovarian cancer, and whereas Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month provides an opportunity for communities to support those affected, to honor the memories of those lost, and to emphasize the importance of research, education, and accessible health care for early diagnosis and improved outcomes. And whereas the City of Cottonwood joins in this national effort to promote awareness, encourage regular medical checkups, and support continued funding for research and prevention efforts, now, therefore, I, Ann Shaw, Mayor of the City of Cottonwood, do hereby proclaim September 2025 as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in Cottonwood, Arizona, and encourage all residents to become more informed about ovarian cancer, participate in awareness activities, wear teal in support of those affected by the disease, and advocate for ongoing research and education. In witness whereof, I, Ann Shaw, have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Cottonwood to be affixed this 16th of September, 2025. And, excuse me. We have Rachel Sackett-Putman via Zoom to speak to us about this very important issue.
Thank you, Mayor Shaw. And thank you, for granting this proclamation. I just wanted to say a couple words. I appreciate that opportunity. So ovarian cancer is one of the deadliest cancers that impacts women, yet it remains one of the most underfunded and least understood. Each year in the United States, nearly 20,000 women are diagnosed, and over 12,700 will lose their lives to this disease. That's a staggering 64% mortality rate. Here in Arizona, hundreds of women face this devastating diagnosis each year, and sadly more than 75% are diagnosed at advanced stages due to vague symptoms and the lack of a reliable early detection test. The 5-year survival rate remains below 50%, and shockingly, that hasn't improved in decades. At age 38, I was diagnosed with stage 3A low-grade serous ovarian cancer, or LGSOC, a rare form of ovarian cancer that disproportionately impacts young, premenopausal women. This insidious disease has no standard of care, is chronic, and experiences an 85% recurrence rate. The impact on my life and my family as a result has been profound. Like many women that face LGSOC, I lost my ability to have biological children with no time or guidance to preserve fertility. Cancer robbed my husband and I of the dreams we had not yet fulfilled, and these losses still echo through every day of survivorship. As a 5-year survivor, it's heart-wrenching to think that I've beaten the odds. But even worse are the devastating stories of those who did not. One of them is my dear friend and first mentee, Jordan, who died last September during Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, just one day after her 33rd birthday. Jordan was vibrant, brilliant, and full of hope. I had the privilege of running the Disney Princess 10K with her last February, only 7 short months prior to her passing. Jordan's last words to me were, "I'm glad you're fighting for awareness of this disease. I just don't have it in me right now." Jordan's death crushed me, but I made her a promise to continue fighting for her and every woman still waiting for earlier detection better treatment, and a real chance at survival. Women like Jordan deserve more. They deserve better. They deserve a future. That begins with awareness, which leads to earlier diagnoses, research resources, and ultimately survival. Thank you for standing with survivors, honoring those we have lost, and helping to protect women across Cottonwood, Arizona. Together, we can shine a light on this gravely overlooked disease and give hope to the women and families in our communities that need it the most.
Thank you, Mrs. Sackett-Putman. I'm so pleased that you are here to share your story and raise our understanding and awareness of this, yes, insidious disease.
Thank you.
Okay, our next proclamation is regarding Verde River Day 2025. Whereas the Verde River is a riparian resource that winds its way through the heart of Cottonwood in the Verde Valley, and whereas the citizens of Cottonwood cherish our natural environment, and whereas Cottonwood's most precious natural resource, the Verde River Corridor, reflects our community, who we are, and why we live here, and whereas the Verde River Corridor is a welcome and essential bed and breakfast for neotropical birds on the arduous migration path between northern and southern Americas, and whereas more than 340 bird species have been recorded flying, trilling, and resting along the green riparian pathway, and some of the highest breeding bird densities of any North American habitat exist in the Verde River riparian area. And whereas the Verde River is a unique and important environmental and economic resource, it contains a significant amount of the riparian habitat left in Arizona, where 85% of all wildlife in the area looks for sustenance and is critical to the survival of numerous native aquatic and terrestrial species. And whereas the Verde River is a significant water supply and recreational corridor, and whereas we risk losing this treasure if we don't strategize together to preserve it for future generations. And whereas Verde River Day was organized in 1988 to promote awareness of the Verde River's distinctive riparian habitat, and now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Ann Shaw, Mayor of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, do hereby proclaim September 27th, 2025 as Verde River Day in the City of Cottonwood. Thank you for being with us, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor,
Olivedorio.
Vice Mayor. Appreciate all of you, City Council. You guys have supported this event for 36 years. We're in our 36th year of this event, partnership with Dead Horse Ranch State Park, which you all know is just a gem in our area. Just the migrating birds, as you said, coming through the area, it's amazing. They host an annual birding festival there too, just because of that. It's an amazing place. So September 27th, like I said, 36 years of doing it, right between the two lagoons. We're going to have all kinds of nature-based exhibitors as well as nonprofit organizations that are supporting the river. Friends of the Verde River will be there. U.S. Forest will be there, Prescott National Forest, Red Rock Ranger District, Arizona State Parks. It's just a great day out at the park. Fish and Game is actually sponsoring a fishing clinic, so from 8 to noon you'll be able to come out, don't need a license, a pole, or bait. They're stocking the pond with $1,500 worth of catfish, so they're dumb fish. You just got to throw your hook in and you'll probably catch something. It's a great day. So lots of fun, lots of food. We'll have a couple food trucks out there. Just going to be amazing. I do and would like to recognize our title sponsor this year is Sparklight. They really are helping us out, stepped up to take that role, helps us offset a lot of that cost. Platinum sponsor is Yavapai Broadcasting, so they're going to be out there with the live remotes. We'll have music all day. It's going to be broadcast on 3 different stations, which is great. We want to get the public out there. In past years, we've had over 3,000 people attend that event, and it's a free day at the park, so it's a lot of fun. Just, again, silver sponsors, Verde Independent, APS, Westcott Funeral Home, and then our river supporters, NRCD, will be out there with the canoe ride. So one lagoon will be fishing, one will be canoe rides around the lagoon. Arizona State Parks, Sierra Club, and Bedrock Landscaping brings out a big truck worth of sand. We have a kids' corner, and they get to do sandcastle building, and it's just a great family event, and it's free. So please join us. I know you all have the flyer up there. Just want to thank you very much, again, for always supporting the event, and couldn't do it without you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a great event, and I'll see you there.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
I have a question for you, sir. I know we at the Homeless Coalition are saving tin cans.
Yes.
Can you highlight that?
Sure.
What's that all about?
Again, Homeless Coalition is going to have a booth there, so again, we support, it's an all nonprofit event, so if you are a nonprofit and you have some sort of nature-based activity for the family and the kids, it's a great opportunity for the coalition to be out there. While the cans will have holes and stuff in them, they're going to be planting some kind of plant, I believe, in the can. And while they're doing that, that will give the board and whoever else is attending with the coalition to talk to parents about the importance of supporting the coalition and its efforts. And I just wanted to also echo the event, Walk a Mile in My Shoes. It's coming up November 1st. Great event. You'll start seeing a lot of the marketing and advertising going out for that. We've got some great sponsors there as well. So Route 89A will be doing a t-shirt for us. So if you register to be a walker, you'll get a t-shirt with the logo on it, as well as the Manhattan is doing hats. So it's $50 to register. All that money goes back to supporting the coalition, and you get a hat and a t-shirt. And I would like to see all council maybe do a team to walk. And if you can't walk that far, I'll wheel you around. But yeah, that's going to be an amazing event too. We're pretty excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have a series of presentations.
Sandra's saying something about a picture.
Oh, yeah, okay. Let's do that. Christian, do you want to come up and we'll do a picture?
You see my screen?
Thank you.
You've got it up. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And you can still hear me okay?
Hi, Mr. Simpson, this is Mayor Shaw. We're ready for you.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of City Council. Thank you so much for having me this evening. I met several of you at our open house on May 22nd. Madam Mayor, I believe we had a conversation. Vice Mayor Coates, I think we also talked a little bit about parking. KIMLEY is an engineering consulting firm. We were hired earlier this year to do a parking study specifically for Old Town area, Old Town Cottonwood. My name is Jeremiah Simpson. I'm a senior parking consultant and project manager for this project. Bennett Hall, my deputy, was pretty heavily involved in putting together both this presentation and the report. He is on PTO right now, enjoying some personal time, and so I am hopefully going to do this justice and present our findings. Our full report is in your packets, along with a copy of this presentation. I'm going to go through an overview of what we looked at and what we found, and hopefully speak for about 15 minutes. Feel free, if you have a very burning question, you can shout it out. Otherwise, please hold your questions at the end, and we can always go back and hit things in a little bit more detail, since I'm gonna be covering things at a summary level to start with. So thank you very much to Scott, members of his team, and over in the planning department. The people listed on the slide were pretty instrumental in helping get us arranged, community public survey distributed, arranging for us to use the community clubhouse for our open house, and getting us on the agenda tonight, and then also for Planning and Zoning Commission and Historic Preservation Commission, other two groups we presented to. So thank you very much to your wonderful staff for working with us on completion of this study. This is what I'd like to talk about for the next 12 minutes or so. An overview of the project, what we found with utilization of parking within Old Town, how we've reached out as part of the process, what our projections are in terms of future Old Town parking needs, and a couple of recommended strategies. And then we'll take whatever time you have available on your agenda, and I'm here at your disposal until your questions are answered this evening. So again, we did look specifically at the Old Town area. We had a fairly narrow scope of work aimed at just understanding what the existing condition is of public and commercially available parking lots within the Old Town. We projected future demand conditions. We engaged via survey and our open house to get a little bit more feedback from the community on what perceived parking and mobility issues existed within Old Town. And then we've also arrived at some recommendations for future infrastructure and some management considerations that we will talk here at the end about a couple of our findings. So we did our survey data pretty close to some of your peak weeks and weekends. We looked at the end of March and we surveyed parking utilization at 11 a.m., 2 p.m., and 6 p.m. on a weekday at the end of March and a Saturday at the end of March. And then we came back on May 10th for the wine festival and also looked at parking occupancies. And these slides are going to kind of build. I think what's important to take home is looking at the lots that were fully utilized there on the right. Either hatched purple, meaning they were 100% occupied, and the red ones. So here's a typical evening, Wednesday evening in late March. So quite a few of the public parking resources along Main Street, pretty full, and most of the public lots fairly full. The parking around Old Town Activity Park really serves as the outlet valve as people circulate perhaps on North Main and can't find parking immediately. Some folks find their way down to that gravel lot and park around the activity park, and then also over onto First and Second, which we've included some of the side streets. Even though they're not specifically managed for public parking, there's not really signage that says that folks can't park along those block faces, and so we've included those in our surveys. Here you'll see a peak utilization on a typical busy weekday of about 67% of the available supply. We like to see parking systems no more than about 80 to 85% filled. Beyond that, it creates some excess traffic circulation throughout the Old Town area as people look for the last handful of parking stalls. And so if you hear me use the phrase effective utilization or effective supply, I'm really talking about a cap of about 80 to 85% utilized. And so that would be what we would consider the buffer of available parking between the 67% observed on a weekday and what's typically available at a maximum utilization rate. So here you'll see on the Saturday, even busier than the weekday. peak utilization of around 77% of the available supply. Again, almost all of the public and quite a few of the commercial parking lots pretty well occupied, and more utilization around Old Town Activity Park. And then again, on the Saturday with the Verde Valley Wine Festival, we saw everything very well utilized, 76% total occupancies, with really the only available parking on some of the side residential streets, First and Second, and some spaces around Old Town Activity Park. But challenging to find a parking space at 6 p.m. on those busy weekends, and I'm sure there's other events through the peak season where similar conditions exist. And so there will be a perception at these occupancy rates that parking is not easy to find, and that's what we heard from some of the residents and business owners that we talked to as well. So I mentioned our outreach. We put out a public survey. We had about 250 people respond via our open survey, our online survey. We had some people showed up to our open house on May 22nd. A number of folks from City Council were there, so thank you for participating. This is an example of how we collect feedback in person. So we did some voting on possible management solutions and management ideas. We got people's feedback via Post-it notes. We had an open comment form, and we certainly engaged with plenty of folks that wanted to talk about parking and mobility issues. And then we also presented probably about 45 minutes total with Q&A to both Planning and Zoning Commission and Historic Preservation Commission back in May, and received their feedback and incorporated that into our study as well. And so in general, I think that some interesting things from the survey that we saw, we did see quite a high rate of folks driving single occupancy vehicles into the Old Town. This is probably not atypical for most communities in the U.S. Pretty good rate of carpool, and also fairly walkable and bikeable, which is nice. We also saw a large percentage of kind of larger vehicles, and we observed that with vehicles parked on street on Main in those angled parking stalls. And that was backed up by our survey, where about 70% of the respondents said that they drive a truck or SUV compared to a sedan. So something to keep in mind for future planning when we provide parking is, the size of the stalls. And so that's an important statistic, is that your local population is really truck and SUV oriented, and so that probably informs a comfortable design standard for parking spaces in the future. The preferred improvements, also, no surprises here. Most people that we spoke to were in favor of adding some more public parking. We heard some desire for more handicapped accessible ADA parking spaces within the Old Town. Some folks were very pro time limited parking, and we even got some support for moving to meters in high usage area like along Main Street. There was quite a bit of discussion on signage. There is some public parking signage through the downtown, but it's not consistent, and it's not always easy to find your way over to say the activity park or someplace that might have parking if you're a first-time visitor to Old Town. And then also providing a little bit more formalized program for employees, which is also a fairly common best practice for small downtowns as they move to manage parking, is to allocate some for short-term customer parking and to allocate some for employee or all-day parking. That's a best practice. So what we've done with the observed demand is, this is a complicated chart, so we can come back to it if we need to. I'm not expecting everyone to absorb it, but we've layered in some growth projections that we looked at Arizona's Office of Economic Opportunity. We've looked at City of Cottonwood's own growth forecasts. We've created a hybrid model of potential growth in new downtown employees as businesses might move into the downtown. And we've taken existing conditions and we've modeled that up. And there's a couple of different lines on this chart. you'll recall I talked about the effective supply. And so if you take existing system, the effective supply of parking in the Old Town at an 85% occupancy rate at maximum would be about 580 usable stalls. And so you can see here's our weekday projected growth. And so basically if those growth factors are realized over the next 10 years, that would absorb all of the existing parking. We also looked at a scenario where we might take some of the public parking away as part of a residential permit parking program that would perhaps restrict some parking in the neighborhoods. And then we had an offset, which we'll get to some of our recommended supply expansions in the future. And so the weekday condition, we would say, you know, we're looking in the next 10 years of having a pretty real deficit of parking within Old Town. And it could be even more of a deficit if there are things like a residential permit program implemented. And so we are recommending a supply side solution. That's not always the case. Sometimes we'll look at a downtown area and there will be utilization rates of 60 or 70% or lower. And, you know, really it's more about parking management. When it comes to Old Town, I think, I'll hit this a couple of times, but I think it would be a good idea for council to spend a little bit of time, either tonight or a future work session, but work with your staff to really think about if there's opportunities to expand the parking supply, because we think that it's probably needed for your Old Town area. Let's talk a little bit about management and policy strategies. I'm sorry, I should go back one and just quantify this since it's a lot to absorb. What we think the actual projected need would be physically adding about 80 net stalls to the Old Town area. And if we want to replace some stalls that might be taken out of the public parking supply through an RPP, which is the residential permit program, our total recommendation would be look for opportunities to add about 150 parking spaces. So for those of you here tonight that are really just looking for a firm number, that's really where our recommendation would fall, is we're looking for a net add of 80 to 150 stalls within the Old Town. So a couple of ways to get there. I mentioned time-limited parking on Main Street. One of the fairly consistent challenges that we see in a lot of downtowns that are not currently managing parking is that all-day parkers tend to occupy the most convenient parking stalls. Sometimes it's employees, sometimes it's employees of the business, that's down the street, and the employer had asked their employees not to park right in front of their store, but they might park somewhere else within kind of the prime parking zone. Sometimes, it's other factors. We talked a little bit with Scott about loading and unloading in the on-street. And so one solution is to start to implement and enforce time-limited parking. I would say that it's easy to put this on a slide, and it's a fairly simple concept, but it does require some additional cost and consideration on part of the city, because when you implement managed parking, you then have to create a department that enforces that parking restriction. And so we're talking about setting up something that didn't exist before, and that would be either under police or some other department. You would now have parking enforcement as a regularly staffed position, and then either year-round or during peak seasons, there would need to be enforcement and ticketing on Main to make sure that cars will park for 2 hours or less. The business case is that it encourages turnover parking, and it allows for people that are looking for parking for a short-term stay or finding the most visible and available parking first, and our employees and all-day parkers are encouraged to use parking lots that are off of Main Street. And so this is generally a precursor to considering things, like parking meters, and often a good strategy to pair with, say, infrastructure improvements like adding additional public parking lots, or even if a parking garage is considered as part of the Old Town Activity Park development, a redevelopment, scenario, 2-hour parking would be a supportive policy of adding supply. So our second policy recommendation would be to establish a funding mechanism, and we say quality of life improvements. Really, we believe that there needs to be a strong business case. Meters for the sake of, collecting parking revenue from visitors, it's okay, but it's better if it's tied to a specific, either need, such as expanding public parking opportunities or reinvesting those revenues into a parking benefit district with other quality of life improvements for the downtown, like improving and upgrading signage, providing additional streetscape, perhaps helping to fund a circulator or any other number of programs which might help the parking and mobility work better within the Old Town. Parking meters are not the only way to raise revenues. There are also programs like a parking fund. There might be, say, in lieu fees. I understand there's no minimum parking requirement within Old Town now, within the historic district area, but perhaps something similar related to new development could be established to help fund future parking infrastructure. Of course, meters would put more of that cost directly onto visitors, and that could be a year-round or a peak season only pay parking solution if the city was interested in exploring that as an option. We can talk a little bit more about what that might look like. We definitely saw unifying and expanding the signage as a need. Again, there is some public parking signage, but it's small. Sometimes it's hard to see, and it's not consistent. And so we see communities that are really easy to navigate as having a fairly consistent branding and graphics package where public parking is always marked the same way, and wayfinding from any point of entry into the Old Town will direct you to the closest parking facility or multiple parking facilities. And so it helps your first-time visitors find the overflow parking at Old Town Activity Park or any of the public parking lots if Main Street parking is already filled. So we talked a little bit about a circulator bus. This would be something that we would think would be advantageous during events, larger events, peak evenings, Saturday evenings during peak season, allowing for parking at Riverfront Park if it's not being used for the event. Perhaps the overflow parking could be accommodated there, and then a fixed circulator route would bring people back into the Old Town area. We just provided this as an example. We also talked about, potential other parking lots in our report that might be available. So this would require some additional investigation, and we understand that there's a cost procuring or renting shuttles during these peak times, and that that can be a high cost. We've seen things, and I don't even know your price point for Cottonwood, but the last time I did a shuttle plan, I think a third-party shuttle was running, $130 or $150 per shuttle hour per vehicle. So, there's some significant cost implementing something like that. So that would be a consideration if that would something of interest. And then launching a residential permit program. We understand that some of the residents that work are near to downtown, maybe this would be something that would be desirable to them. It doesn't have to be entirely restrictive just for residents. Some cities implement an RPP program, and then they have employees parked for a certain number of permits within their RPP district, so that during the weekday daytime those employees can go park on the block faces, but you don't have all of the visitors filling side streets. So this is something to consider. There's pros and cons to a residential permit program. It is, it is favorable for communities where residents have had a real issue with visitors parking in front of their homes and creating trash or other problems on those streets. At the same time, you are, taking away a public parking resource and giving exclusive or more exclusive rights to residents of the street. And, there's always a policy debate on the trade-offs of that sort of thing. So here are some of our additional parking management opportunities. We talked a little bit about the opportunity around the activity park for redevelopment and perhaps a small parking garage. We understand with the historic district and with the flood considerations there, that there would need to be some additional engineering evaluation in terms of retaining wall and flood mitigation, and also how big a parking garage could even be sited on that location. The Old Town is pretty land constrained, and so the opportunities to provide a parking garage are fairly limited. There's just not a lot of places within the Old Town. A typical parking garage is about 120 feet wide, which is 260-foot bays, and a minimum length of about 250 feet. So it's a fairly sizable footprint for an above-grade garage. We had some opportunities in our report with a local church, for example, to provide some business parking during the week. That would be a shared public-private agreement between the city and businesses that were interested in working with the city to provide some employee parking, for example. We talked a little bit about alternative locations for remote intercept lots in our report. Local schools, local grocery store that may have excess parking. And then we identified a couple of things for additional study, and that would be looking a little bit about policy regarding loading zones with delivery trucks and things that might be taking up public on-street parking at times when it's not advantageous, and whether or not that loading could be handled within alleys. We think that probably requires a little bit more study and policy work on that front. And then also tour bus parking and staging and where that would go. This slide says Riverfront Park. We did not see a lot of tour buses during our occupancy surveys, and so we would encourage a little bit more study to understand how many tour buses really need to be accommodated and what events and what times of year those would be needed. And so we did identify in our report about 80 net stalls. There are a couple of gravel lots. Yavapai and First, I believe, was one of the locations that's gravel that could be paved. That's city property. And so those are in our report as possible expansions to the parking system. So I've gone just a little bit long, but I'd love to take any questions on the slides or on our report.
So this may be a question for Mr. Ellis. What are you looking for, any guidance, or is this informational, and what would you like to see from council as far as next steps are concerned?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Marks, no, we're not looking for any guidance or anything on this. This is informational. This is kind of a precursor for the upcoming Old Town Master Plan that we're looking to do, that we will bring to council sooner than later to discuss that. This is just kind of giving council an idea of what it looks like for parking down there, what the various options are, and it'll supplement that Old Town Master Plan.
One question I have, you can probably answer, I hope, is once all the city employees are out of downtown, Old Town, how many parking spaces might that unload?
I can't give you an exact number right now, but it would be probably a decent number. I know there's a few city vehicles down there. I don't know, do you know how many are down there, Mario? Not exactly. It's not going to be a lot, but it'd be a few.
I would say approximately 20.
Okay, that would be my guess.
what I was
And that's just an off-the-wall question, but,
Yeah.
and that's only temporary, so.
Right.
Speaking of handicap parking, do we have a number of handicap stalls in Old Town? Approximately?
I don't have that number. We can definitely get it. There's definitely a number we can easily get.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, sorry, sir, which council member are you?
If it was an intelligent question, it's Councilmember Marks.
Okay, all right. The answer is yes. The detailed inventories in our report have a breakdown of ADA, so we should be able to get a count of that to share with you. Now, of course, that applies on a facility-by-facility basis, as you probably know. So if you improve a parking lot, that improved parking lot needs to meet the ADAG, the American with Disability Act's Accessibility Guidelines table. And so, it starts at, say, call it two stalls, and then it scales up. Once you get above a certain amount, it's 2%, and then a certain percentage of what's provided has to be van accessible. So, but there's, as infrastructure is improved, essentially you need to provide a couple of ADA stalls at each parking lot.
In your experience, what would say in the one park area we've got down there, if we could, build a small parking garage, wouldn't that pay for itself? Or what's your experience and how much that might cost and payback?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And again, which council member, if you don't mind me?
That was Debbie Wilden.
Okay, yes, Councilmember Wilden, thank you for that. That is a fantastic question, and I think it's probably a common misconception. Parking generally does not pay for itself. Parking is pretty expensive. We're seeing construction costs of north of $85 or $90 per square foot for a freestanding garage. So just to break it down into really simple terms, most garages would need to generate about $250 per space per month in revenue in order to support both operations and debt costs on that garage. And so you can imagine, most places in the U.S. outside of major urban cores, their rates are just not there. So kind of to put that into perspective, if you implement a downtown meter program and you charge for permits in the garage, you probably would offset your operating expenses, and you would probably be able to build up some funds for capital improvements over time, but the debt on construction would still need to be funded through other mechanisms, most likely.
Thank you.
Mr. Simpson, Chris Dow here. I have a real concern with paying for parking in Old Town. And I say that because if we have people paying for parking in Old Town, then in my opinion, they're spending less in the stores. So it goes, do we not, to me, we're taking away from something in order to add something just to the city coffers rather than the whole intent, which is to get people in to spend money in Old Town. So I guess that's my struggle. Is there a balance there between parking like that and then the revenue stream that comes into the businesses? Because ultimately, in my opinion, you're going to be taken away from some of the businesses.
Yeah, Councilmember Dell, I completely, respect and appreciate the question. I think it's a discussion that we have with every city that's moving, from managed to a paid parking solution. What we'll say is that we tend to see cities that have, and towns that have, done some kind of projects and redevelopment in the downtown core as ones that, take the opportunity to move to paid parking. And what charging $1 or $1.50 an hour on street does is it creates a more of a market incentive for that turnover to happen. That said, the number one concern that we get from community business owners, and there is a lot of businesses that they fear that $1 or $1.50 an hour would in fact limit their customers' willingness to come into the Old Town area and shop and dine. What we find is it has a lot to do with the placemaking of the downtown. So it's not, if you're going to go out to a restaurant to eat and, you're spending, $25 or $30 per person or more if you have some drinks. I laugh because I've got 2 kids and we can't even get out of McDonald's these days less than $30. So it's it's expensive to go out to eat. So $1 or $2 for an evening out or in a destination downtown, we see people are willing to spend that. That said, we understand that it is a business concern. So I guess that was a roundabout answer to a simple question to say I don't particularly have a great balance there. We do see meters as effective in certain communities and under certain circumstances, and I would say you might consider 2-hour parking or managed parking as a first step.
So what you're saying is managed parking, meaning no meters, just saying 2 hours, and somebody goes and does that without charging, unless, of course, you're in violation, then you would get it, but not everybody.
Yes, and that can accomplish the turnover of the Main Street stalls that the meters would also try to encourage.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Simpson, this is Councilmember Coates. I had a couple questions. First of all, thank you for the plan. It was well done. I liked all the recommended strategies. The one strategy I was a little less positive on was the circulator bus. I appreciate you providing the information on the cost per hour of running such a bus. And I wondered if you had any data on the effectiveness of such a bus. So for example, here locally we have a shuttle in Jerome that runs in between the open pit mine parking lot and Jerome. And so it would be helpful to know, to use that as a benchmark to see whether that has really been effective.
Yes, Vice Mayor Coates, thanks for the question. I don't have any information on the Jerome bus. I think that's a good suggestion to look at that program. I will say, I think the success of a circulator, has a lot to do with, how, whether you're kind of advertising and able to create some habits with people that are willing to go park in that remote or intercept lot because they had a good experience and it was easier than trying to circulate through Old Town to find parking. So maybe it's for one of your festivals or events and that remote lot is pretty heavily promoted and advertised. Maybe there's some dynamic signage that directs people to that lot. We see them being very effective in places where we can get folks, we call them interceptor lots. So where the key there is really intercepting the traffic, right, and getting folks used to and comfortable parking in those. So, as you're probably pretty familiar, over in Sedona, they do that now fairly extensively for some of their trailheads, and they do get good ridership on some of their shuttles. Some of that has to do with the fact that the trailhead parking is just full. So now when people that are in the know, if they're there too late in the morning, they might as well just go to the shovel lot and use that. So it's a good question, and I would say it would warrant some further study, and we clearly want a return on your investment. If you're going to spend the money on a shuttle, it would need to be utilized.
Okay. My other question was, you spent time on the 5 recommended strategies, and then there was kind of a laundry list of other ideas that followed. And is that purposeful to say our focus should be on those 5 and the others are subordinate or not as strong candidates? And the reason I'm asking that in part is because one of the things that you mentioned in your report is about how the Old Town Activity parking lot is the largest by land area, but was consistently underutilized, suggesting it is a less appealing option and or less visible. And I think if it were, better signed and, better surfaced, it could be better utilized. And I think a perfect case in point was when I moved to Cottonwood, there was a dirt lot next to the Old Town Jail with a tree, and there were some people that parked there, but it was resurfaced, there was signage provided, and now it's a beautiful parking lot that provides an amazing number of parking spaces. So I guess back to my original question is, are those other, that laundry list of other things less important or less impactful on the parking need?
Yeah, so another good question. That was really more of a decision on what I was going to talk about tonight, and so we felt the parking management solutions needed a little bit more explanation in the report. I don't think that we've prioritized parking management over infrastructure. So, I want to be clear, if I kind of shortchanged the expansion options, I didn't do that intentionally. We really think from our assessment of future conditions that over the next 10 years or so, we need that between that 80 and 150 stalls. And so you're right, the Old Town Activity Park, right now, it's not clearly signed as public parking. It's also gravel, so it's not going to be used very efficiently, and it's kind of a weird shape. So, say there was no other development or changes at Old Town Activity Park, I think it would be a good idea to consider whether or not paving and kind of striping this lot to improve the efficiency would make sense, and at minimum provide some pretty clear signage that this is available public parking. So I did that in the slides out of kind of speaking point emphasis and not necessarily trying to prioritize one over the others.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I want to make the comment that, Old Town, especially with regard to the city spaces, is in a point of transition now. And, as master planning continues, I certainly find value in this report. I want to keep all of these possibilities, these elements in mind, but I also want to, to be open to some of the possibilities that we've kind of touched on tangentially rather than, addressing directly, because of the fact that we are possibly going to be changing the configuration of at least the area where City Hall is presently, which would change how we approach parking in that area. Because, it's really interesting when you look at the mapping that you did, that one of the largest parking areas is that gravel lot behind City Hall and in the Finance and Human Resources building and the basketball court. So I think there are there are options that we're going to have to take into consideration that we can't entirely address now just because we haven't got a clear plan about where all of this is going. So I really appreciate the report, and we got to talk about all of this, Mr. Simpson, so we had our discussion, so I'll leave it at that, and offer, you know, if there's anything I can help with, I will.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And absolutely, I think it's a good point. I think your upcoming, master plan will need to, it'll need to have a refreshed parking chapter, and, we think the parking management recommendations probably are good things to consider as part of that master plan, and then any kind of infrastructure would need to be, as you said, informed by what's happening on a couple of these opportunity sites.
Yeah. Okay. Any further commentary or questions? Thanks so much for being with us, Mr. Simpson. We really appreciate you going through the report with us.
Absolutely. I'd love to stay involved as these, changes happen. So, please let us know if there's any other things we can do to serve you. I'd love to come out and learn how to fish for catfish and build some sandcastles. That sounded fantastic. So.
All are welcome. It's free. Come on up.
I know. It sounds like a great event. Well, thank you very much for your time this evening. I will drop off the call here, and if you have any questions we didn't get to tonight that occur to you, let Scott know, and he can either supply my email or pass them on.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Mr. Ellis.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have presentation of the Arizona chapter of the American Planning Association's Best Regional or General or Comprehensive Plan for Jurisdiction Population 49,999 or less. Oh, I thought you were leaving.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're back.
I can if you want, but
No, you're back.
I'm back.
Welcome.
A couple of weeks ago, Tina and I attended the state planning conference and the annual planning conference down in Tempe. They awarded the city the best, let's say it right, regional, general, or comprehensive plan for jurisdiction under 50,000. I will point out that we did our general plan in-house, as you know, and we beat out jurisdictions that had consultants. So it is kind of special.
Applause. Very good. Congratulations.
I would like to thank my staff. They were instrumental on it. Another thing I'd like to point out is Gary Davis came out of retirement for a couple hours to join us. So he was there. So that was nice to see him.
Yeah.
He looks a little less gray. But no, this is a community effort. This plan was, a long time coming, and yeah, a lot of people.
How many communities were in the running, so to speak?
They didn't tell us that, but they did say the competition was pretty fierce. So it was nice that we won. Yeah. So I'll have Tina pass it around to you guys. You can check it out. We did present it to the Planning Commission yesterday. This is actually not the real award. They're giving us bigger and better later. So.
Oh.
Are you guys getting a big belt? Like the WWE belt?
That would be nice. I'll recommend that for next time. So, yeah, I like to think it's a big deal. Again, staff, you guys, the commissions, everybody had input on it, so it's a community award.
Well, we're glad to share in it to any degree that we contributed, but your efforts are really paramount in that, and congratulations. That's excellent.
Thank you.
It's going to look great in the new city hall.
They will.
Not in the lobby.
We need a trophy case.
Trophy case.
Because we are the reigning
Trophy case.
because we are the reigning department for the Halloween competition, so we got to put stuff somewhere.
You heard that, police department, right? Challenge is on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're doing the presentation.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we have a video to play. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, sorry.
Cottonwood, Arizona. Founded in 1879 and incorporated in 1960, the Cottonwood Commercial Historic District reflects key areas of growth from the 1920s through the post-World War II period and was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2000. Fast forward to today, Cottonwood spans 27.4 square miles and is home to over 12,600 residents. The city is known for its scenic beauty, vibrant community, and a unique mix of small-town charm and economic vitality. Cottonwood is the cultural and economic hub of the Verde Valley, known for its services and its growing reputation as the heart of Arizona wine country. At the same time, Cottonwood remains committed to preserving its cultural and natural resources, including the Verde River, Dead Horse Ranch State Park, its unique riparian habitat, and the historic district, ensuring a sustainable future for generations to come. As the city continues to grow, Cottonwood is shaping its future with intention. The City of Cottonwood's 2024 General Plan outlines a clear, forward-looking vision for the city's future, created with input from the community, leaders, and stakeholders. The updated plan is streamlined, user-friendly, and designed to support meaningful growth. The update process began in November 2022 with public outreach and was approved by voters in November of 2024. The plan is organized into 12 key elements, covering all essential topics to guide Cottonwood's development and priorities. One of the key improvements in Cottonwood's 2024 General Plan is its clarity and ease of use. Unlike previous versions, which were dense and difficult to navigate, the updated plan is concise, clearly written, and visually organized for broader accessibility. It uses plain language and presents goals in a way that directly supports the city's vision for growth, sustainability, and livability. The plan has been streamlined to focus on core values, realistic goals, and actionable strategies, removing outdated or repetitive content. The document now serves as a targeted functional tool for planning, investment, and community development. Designed to be a living framework, it guides timely decisions, adapts to changing priorities, and ensures alignment with city council strategies. Complementing the general plan is the City Atlas, a dynamic, continually updated resource that provides mapping, demographic data, economic insights, and land use visuals. It helps bridge the gap between policy and place, allowing staff, developers, and residents to better understand real-time trends, challenges, and opportunities. Together, the 2024 General Plan and City Atlas serve as a modern planning toolkit, accessible, actionable, and grounded in Cottonwood's current needs while supporting the community's long-term goals. This user-focused approach guides responsible development, enhances quality of life, and protects the city's unique character for future generations.
Cool. Yay!
And that was John Staub with the library who put that video together, so I'd like to thank him as well.
Oh, it's very nice.
Is he here? Is he here? Thank you very much.
Yay.
Team effort, for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other thank yous? Kudos to you guys. Okay, next we have presentation on the history and current status of the Riverfront Water Reclamation Facility, the very place where we sit.
Tom, I think they had a 3-minute timer on there, so.
Yeah.
That's there for a reason.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out the intelligent Mr. Councilman. No. Good evening. Oh, my gosh. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Tom Weber. I'm the Utilities Director. And I've been asked to make a presentation on this wonderful water reclamation facility that you're currently sitting in. Leading up to this presentation, I was asked by a number of council members as well as staff for several different things. One was presented how we got here. What did we do to try and make this plant operational? What's the future of this plant? What did we learn from this plant? And most importantly, the last two things that I was asked is keep it short and light. So I would like to focus on the last two suggestions. This plant was built in 2017. It has never worked properly, and it shut down in May of 2022. And without answering any questions. I'm being serious. No. Okay. See if this thing works. Oops, wrong way. I thought it was important to actually really understand how we got here. You need to go back and figure out exactly what it was what was the genesis of this plant to begin with. It's kind of an interesting story because in 2007 there were two things that were going on. One, the city manager went on vacation to Europe, and the other thing was the city at that point in time was trying to find means and ways to motivate folks to try and reuse reclaimed water more so than what was currently being used at the time. They've gone so far as they put a plan in place to actually put reclaimed water lines throughout the entire city, and we're in the process of putting that in. I mentioned the city manager because the city manager had gone to Europe, and while he was over there, he came back and said that he had noticed that over there, they had all these little tiny satellite water treatment plants, wastewater treatment plants, that they developed and built in areas where they could easily utilize the reclaimed water once it was treated. Those two concepts kind of came together. And then in 2008, something happened here at the Mingus Wastewater Treatment Plant that at that point in time was interpreted as we were reaching very closely the maximum treatment capacity of that plant. The plant has a treatment capacity of 1.5 million gallons per day, and we were receiving at that point in time about 1 million gallons per day, but the organic loading of the plant was on an upward trend, and despite there being maximum volume capacity limitations, there's also organic loading limitations that also are indicative of where you're doing in terms of treatment effectiveness. At that point in time, it was on a slight trend. That kind of initiated the discussions about what do we do? Should we go ahead and start looking at building a small wastewater treatment plant to offset the concerns about the Mingus Wastewater Treatment Plant loading? So in 2009, at the request of council, or at the request of staff, council approved a consulting contract with Cohen Van Loo to actually do a feasibility study. In that feasibility study, they asked them to look at what is the feasibility of constructing a 0.3 million gallon per day treatment plant. Where should you site this plant? Look at locations where we could potentially site it and focus on those areas where reclaimed water could be potentially used as one of the criteria for identification of an ideal site. They also looked at, asked to look at the actual treatment processes themselves. By that I mean this plant here is an activated treatment sludge, rather conventional treatment process, has been used for many, many years, but there was also another treatment process known as an advanced wastewater treatment process, which primarily is membrane bioreactor and biofiltration. So they asked them to look at both of those to evaluate them as a possibility as well as part of this feasibility study. In addition to that, they also asked them to take into consideration 3 different disposal options for the treated effluent once it was treated. Those options were, of course, direct discharge to the Verde River. The second one was reuse of the reclaimed water for irrigation of turf. And then the last one was any leftover or unused wastewater effluent could be sent back up to Mingus along with the biosolids for disposal. In addition to that, they also were asked to look at doing an analysis of the potential for flood impacts on each of these sites that they identified. The feasibility study was concluded in 2009, and they concluded that yes, it is feasible to actually build a 0.3 MGD plant for treating wastewater. They also, as a part of that, were asked to look at the feasibility of adding solar to that I left out. They wanted this plant to be as
Green.
environmentally friendly as possible. So if the more that you can focus on renewable resources, in this case power, the better. They also, of the two treatment processes, they actually recommended using the advanced wastewater treatment process as opposed to the conventional activated sludge, which is what we have here. They identified Riverfront Park as meeting all the criteria for building a plant. And at Riverfront Park, they actually identified 3 locations in the park itself, one being the dog park, one being right next to the skate park, and then the last one, which is the one they ultimately settled on, is the one where we're currently at, which was property, ironically, that was purchased by the Wastewater Enterprise Fund back in 1997 for a future wastewater treatment plant. From that, they came up with cost estimates for the 2 different treatment processes and solar. They range from $4.4 million to $7 million for, depending on which process and how much solar you added to it. Okay. They presented that to council, and council came back and said, well, this is great, we really like this, but you know what? There seems to be a trend now to try and remove pharmaceuticals from wastewater. And in addition to that, we would like you to also look at what it would take to add battery storage in addition to the solar so that the plant could run 100% on renewable energy. So they went back to their study, and they finally concluded and finished that out. And in 2010, they took what they had learned from the feasibility study and started promoting it. And I don't mean just locally, I mean they did it locally, statewide to ADEQ and others. They also took it and made a presentation on this potential of this proposed plant at a national EPA wastewater treatment conference back east. And they were touting this as being the most advanced state-of-the-art wastewater treatment plant that would ever be built, at least up to that point in time. So in 2011, the city did a number of different things. First and foremost, they issued an RFQ for a design, build, construction firm and selected the firm of PCL Construction as the winner of that RFQ. They budgeted $8 million for the plant. Now, if you remember, the range was 4.4 to 7. And of course, the system that they picked was the conventional activated sludge, which was $4.4 to $5.5 million. They adopted Resolution 2612, which authorized the construction of a wastewater treatment plant here at Riverfront Park. As I said before, they awarded the contract to PCL, and they signed a pre-construction agreement with PCL. They also selected Wood Patel as the design engineering firm for the project. Ironically, the individual at Cohen Van Loo that had done the feasibility study had left Cohen Van Loo and went to Wood Patel, and he ended up doing the design on this as well. In 2012, PCL came back with a guaranteed maximum price, which we all do, the GMP, and the GMP came in at way over $14 million. And as you can imagine, it was sticker shock. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Well, they immediately they got very upset, the staff at that point in time, and they terminated the contract. They made a recommendation to terminate the contract with PCL, and they went right back out on the street with another RFQ, but this time they were looking at hiring a construction manager at risk. They selected Felix through that process, Felix Construction, and they also re-signed or continued on with Wood Patel on the engineering design for the project. In 2015, Felix Construction came back with their GMP, and they came in at a little over $10 million for the project, and the project began. In 2016, they began immediately running into problems. And by that I mean it was not only in the design of the project itself, but also in some things that they encountered. Most notably, groundwater is only 16 feet deep here. The basins out here are 16 feet deep. The basins were actually floating when they put them in. They had to come in and put in a dewatering system. Well, that added additional costs to the project. And then there were some factors like they originally had spec'd chlorination as the disinfection, And they found out that that wasn't going to work, so they immediately went to the drawing board, picked a ultraviolet disinfection system off the shelf, and threw that into the project. That was another additional cost. Cost just kept going up and up and up, and so immediately staff went in and started scrambling. What do? They got with a design engineer and immediately started removing components of the project. Most notably, the first and foremost thing to go was the AOX system, the thing that was their gold medal of the project to begin with, because that's what they were touting was going to be state-of-the-art, and it was going to be able to remove pharmaceuticals and home healthcare products and everything else. They removed it. Then they removed the secondary filtration system, of all things, which I really don't know why they did that, but they did. Well, I mean, I know they did it to save money, but I mean, I'm not sure why they thought they could get away with doing that. In addition to that, they changed out the chlorine system, as I said, to UV system. All those things helped stabilize the escalation of the project, but it still was off the charts. Finally, the project was completed in 2017, and the price that it cost to build that plant, excluding a number of components, most notably this 500,000 gallon storage tank out here, the UV system, and some other things, it still came in at $12 million and change for the project. If you start taking all the costs into consideration, it was over $14 million for this plant. We took over the operation of the plant in 2017, the city did, and immediately we started encountering all kinds of problems with it, most notably related to water quality and operational design issues. In the water quality side of the equation, we started seeing extremely high turbidity levels, which were way above our permit levels that we could actually discharge water with. The reason for that is, first and foremost, they had removed the secondary filtration system. In addition to that, the filtration system that they put out here should never have been put in this plant. The plant itself has, when it was operating, has between 1 and 3 hours every night, no flows flowing through it. Absolutely zero. From about midnight to about 3 in the morning, you would average between 1 and 3 hours of no flows. What happens on a vertical sand filter? The sand compacts. Immediately it plugs, and you start getting channeling rather than filtration of your effluent going through it. So it really wasn't working. Secondly, and well, I should say most lastly, we got an infestation of bryozoa. Bryozoa is an aquatic invertebrate that produces its reproductive mechanism is what's known as a statoblast. The statoblasts are encased in a chitin shell. Chitin is probably the best thing I can say it is what a shrimp shell is. And this encapsulates the statoblast to protect it. Well, when it goes through the UV system, it protects it from the UV rays. And so it couldn't kill the statoblast, but more importantly, we had such an outbreak of bryozoa that it was actually shading the E. coli and the coliform bacteria that were also flowing through the thing, so we could not meet our water quality requirements as a result. As I said before, the UV disinfection system also wasn't working because it was off the shelf. They didn't engineer it. They just threw it in and said, oh, it's a UV system, it works. It didn't work, and bryozoa didn't help at all. Then on the operations and design, some of the things that we encountered, of course, they had removed the AOX system, the Advanced Oxidation Treatment System, from the get-go, just to save money. They removed the secondary filtration system problem. The primary one was never engineered for this plant's flow characteristics. It just wasn't going to work. Last but, well, actually I can't say last because there's more, but another big problem that they had is they covered all of the basins out here, and they did that, they claim, to minimize odor issues. The problem with that is bryozoa love dark environments. And then with the no to low flows at night, that just caused their populations to explode. Other things that we encountered that were problems were the change orders that we kept running into during construction. They weren't fully engineered, and then most of the times they weren't adequate. The three disposal options that they were asked, or that they actually addressed during the feasibility study, as I said before, one was direct discharge to the river. The Arizona Department of Environmental Quality made it very clear during numerous meetings prior to construction that they would never approve direct discharge to the river. And the issue is not that the water wasn't clean enough if it was working properly. The problem is that the characteristics, the chemical characteristics of the wastewater coming out of here is vastly different than what's in the river. Whether it's clean or dirty, it's going to impact the aquatic wildlife there. And as a result, they wouldn't allow it. The second one was the reuse of reclaimed water for irrigating turf. In the feasibility study, they came out and they said that there were 26.5 acres being irrigated down here at Riverfront Park at that time. The absolute maximum amount of turf that's ever been irrigated down here is 8 acres. Currently, we irrigate about 7.5 because there used to be a soccer field right here that has been since removed. So their projections on how much reclaimed water would be used for irrigating turf down here alone was vastly overprojected. They also said they could expand that to another 10 acres beyond that. They came up with two other alternatives for irrigation, both of which they failed to take into consideration the cost to actually do that. The first was to go over across the canal, or the ditch here, to the cemetery. There are 2 acres that are currently being irrigated, and they said we can irrigate that. Well, to get a pipeline across there and connect up was going to cost almost $500,000. They failed to take that into consideration in their analysis. The other place was they were saying that 43 acres of turf could be put in over at Dead Horse State Ranch Park and irrigated. Well, to get reclaimed water across the river and put in an irrigation system was in excess of $3 million to do that. They never took that into consideration in that option. And of course, then the last option was, we'll just take the excess and we'll send it back up to Mingus. Well, the entire time that it worked here, we set everything up there, except for the few times we tried to irrigate and ran into some issues because we couldn't maintain the water quality. And then, of course, we ran into something when we started having all kinds of problems back around 2020. We ran into some issues, which I'll tell you about in just a second here. We started looking at the actual specifications for the plant treatment system as it currently is constructed. And at best, it was never designed to produce A+ quality water, which is what our permit required, without advanced filtration, which we removed. So I took over the utilities at the request of the city manager at that point in time to try and get this plant to operate. And we went in, despite all the problems, we started trying to address every one of these different issues that we were having, the high turbidity, the disinfection, the operations, and we did them in concert at the same time. It wasn't like we did one and then tried another one. We were working on all of them at the exact same time. The first thing we did is to get this vertical sand filter to work, we put in a recirculation system, which helped a lot. As far as the bryozoa, we tracked down the world's foremost leading authority on bryozoa. He came out here and we actually developed and designed a treatment system. We drained the tanks, in fact, sterilized them, which is difficult to do for a wastewater treatment plant, and then put them back into service with this treatment process to minimize the bryozoa. As far as the UV was concerned, we worked with the manufacturer on it, and after troubleshooting, we realized that the thing was never engineered to be put in the system to begin with. We actually had to go in and wire it up and then program it in order to make it work in auto. As far as the disposal issue, the only other options we had, since we only had, as far as irrigation is concerned, at most we could probably irrigate use about 25 acre feet of water a year. The plant produces 330 acre feet a year. So we started looking at some other alternatives, and we said, well, let's see if we can recharge down here close to the plant. So we put in an injection well right out here and tested it to see if we could do it. And at best, because of the characteristics of the aquifer that we were going to be putting it into, we could probably put in about 8 acre-feet a year, or 5 gallons per minute. That's the max we could probably do. So we said, well, let's look at further up, and recharge is not a bad option because we can get credits for it, and we're going to need credits at some point in time in the future. So we went up to the kids' park, and we actually drilled a well up there and tested it to see if we could do injection up there. We knew that it was still going to cost us, $1.5 million to $2 million to get a pipeline up there and get the system set up. But if we could get credits for it, maybe it's not a bad solution. So we went up there, drilled the well, tested it, great well. Definitely could do recharge there. We went to the Department of Water Resources and said, okay, we'd like to fill an application, file to get an underground storage facility permit for recharge, so we can get credits for it. We started going through the process after we'd done the testing on it, and the Department of Water Resources said, oh, by the way, we've changed our policy, your well's too close to the river, we won't give you credits for it. So to put out $1.5 million, $2 million to run water up there, and just to put it down the hole makes absolutely no sense. We also looked at putting water in the ditch, and that was an option. Took a lot of convincing of ADEQ, but they said they would entertain the idea and possibly look at giving us a permit to put it in the ditch, which would have been a very inexpensive option, but we'd have lost the resource. It'd been gone. We just put it in the ditch, it'd be gone. We get nothing for it. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense given the fact that we're going to need that effluent at some point in time in the future. On the treatment side of the equation, we were having just operational issues. Not realizing at that point in time that the plant really didn't have the ability to produce A+ water consistently. We started working with the technical support representative from the manufacturer. We worked with them almost weekly for 2 years on this plant, trying to get it to go. And at best, we could get it stabilized and producing A+ water for about 5 days before it would blow up. We finally got a little frustrated with their technical rep and took it to the head of the technical support division of the manufacturer. He came out, we worked with him on and off for about 12 weeks, and then he quit returning our phone calls. Ironically, everything that their technical support rep, the first guy we worked with, all the recommendations he made, this guy countered and said to do just the opposite. And we got the same exact results. It would work for 5 days, 6 days at the most, and then it would go south on us again. We just couldn't get to go. And that's when we got in and said, the thing doesn't have the ability to produce A+ quality water according to their specifications without the additional filtration systems. At that point in time, we were scrambling and said, what do we do here? We don't know what to do. We've been told, get this thing to work because we put a lot of money out. So we started looking at what it would take to put in a system that would work, the advanced wastewater treatment that was recommended in the feasibility study. And we contacted the world's largest manufacturer of those systems. They came out, their analysis said, hey, we can just pull everything out of your basins here and put an MBR system in for you at a cost. The equipment itself was going to run $3 million. To actually install it would have been another $1 million or $2 million or $2 to get it in there. So in 2021, like I said, they gave us an estimate of $3 million for the equipment. City manager at that point in time didn't really want to do that. He said, go hire an engineering firm, have them come out and do an analysis and tell us what it's going to take to fix the plant. So we approached a consulting firm that we'd worked with in the past. They gave us a proposal. I took it to council on May 22nd, 2022. The cost of that proposal was around $90,000. I opened it up, made the presentation on the proposal, and immediately council at that point in time said, well, wait a minute. Tell us about the plant. How did we get here? Similar to what I'm doing to you tonight. And so I went through the whole thing at that point in time. They came back and said no. It was a 6-1 vote. They voted, do not spend any more money on this plant. Let's shut it down. So I made the recommendation, we're going to shut it down. We need to do a temporary cessation of operations as opposed to an actual complete decommissioning of the plant, which is very costly. And we made that, and that's the paperwork that we submitted to DEQ, and it's been sitting there ever since. So in conclusions, what did we learn from this? The justification for constructing this plant were flawed from the beginning. The options identified for disposing reclaimed water could, at best, get rid of about 10% of the water that's being produced by this plant. As constructed, this plant wasn't capable of producing A-plus quality water because we'd removed so many of the components to begin with that it couldn't do it. Continue to operate the plant without effective treatment and a complete disposal option made absolutely no sense, and it was very costly to keep sitting here, treating water here and sending it up to Mingus to be treated again. So, what is the future of this plant? As I said before, the value of reclaimed water is going up exponentially, especially when we get to the point where you guys are going to have an opportunity to approve these settlement agreements that we've been working on for quite some time, which will be coming to you in October. Those are going to cap how much water we can pump from the ground, as is the adjudication. Those are the two big things that are looming on the horizon, and the only water that's going to be available to us in the future is the reclaimed water. So the value of that is, it's just too valuable to just be putting it in a ditch and sitting it down or putting it in a hole and not getting anything for it. There's no way to fully reuse reclaimed water produced at this plant currently, other than putting it into the ditch, which you're not going to get anything for it. The city has water rights to the Cottonwood ditch. In surface water law here, you have a provision if you either use it or you lose it. And so if you would come down here and say, well, we're just going to put grass everywhere down here and we're going to use reclaimed water, you now have quit using your surface water and you potentially are going to lose that water right. You don't want to lose that water right because that's another source of water that has very high seniority rights to it. Goes back to the 1870s, in fact. The cost to bring this plant back up and back into service is going to run you between $5 and $6 million minimum. And you still have the issue of where do you put it once you do it. Let's see. So, in closure here, the likelihood of this plant ever coming back on is almost zero. If we were to put this back into service, however, the treatment system would have to be changed from activated sludge here. The only way to do it is through advanced wastewater treatment, which would be an MBR system. It'd also be probably the least expensive option. Well, that'll answer any questions. Sorry for the long-windedness.
Mr. Whitmer, I just want to tell you that I read your report and presentation last night at about 11 o'clock, and I really never thought that I would enjoy or be emotionally involved in a report about a wastewater treatment plant.
Me neither.
But excellently done. It was very clear, and I really appreciate the thoroughness of the report.
I was trying to be as thorough as possible so it would answer all your questions, if we could just say thank you.
That's why I don't have any.
So what is the best use of this plant? Can we steal parts of it and use someplace else, or tear it down, or leave it, or what?
We have been doing that already. We've pulled pumps from here, we've pulled the generator out of here, we've pulled a number of different things to use at other locations to help avoid escalating costs elsewhere. And so that's what we've been doing with it at this point in time.
Mr. Whitmer, I'm trying to add up all the numbers. Maybe you might have it off the top of your head. But what's the total amount we have actually sunk into, what's our all-in cost so far?
I would say you're between $15 and $16 million.
How did we funded the original construction by bond, right? Is that, no?
No, we did not.
It was out of pocket?
Yeah. That's why wastewater's in the situation that it's in, is because we used every bit of reserves that we had for this plant. And that's why we're scrambling now.
You know, if you go back to the timeline, I saw something pretty interesting. You've got to go back to like slide 12, I think.
I don't know which one's 12, but say when.
Yeah, so on the timeline, on the history,
Oh,
in
sure.
2012, 2013,
Yeah,
I just find it interesting that in 2013, the city signed the agreement with Felix Construction, but there was not, but the guaranteed maximum price wasn't approved till 2015.
there was a lot of back and forth on this thing, and, I wasn't part of that, so I can't give you a firsthand knowledge of what really happened there. I can only go by what I've read and what I've heard from others, all of which are gone right now, but they came in very high too. Their initial GMP came in around $13 or $14 million as well, and they said, we can't do that. And that, they started going back to them, back and forth and back and forth. The engineering design person was also involved in that. And that's when they started saying, well, if we had to, we could remove the AOC system, we could remove these things, but they said, no, let's try and keep it in, because council had approved all of it. They said they wanted the whole kit and caboodle. So it took them that long. And it was the end of 13 and the beginning of 15, so it was a little over a year working it back and forth before they finally got to a GMP that they could actually take to council and get council to say yes.
So we're in a temporary cessation
Right.
status. And I can't remember the phrase, deactivation or?
Decommissioning?
Decommissioning. The temporary cessation can go on indefinitely.
Give you an example, Tempe had a temporary cessation of a very large wastewater treatment plant down there, the Kyrene wastewater treatment plant. I think it went almost 8 years. They're now recommissioning and putting it back, not recommissioning, they're actually now putting in an MBR system in the activated sludge basins and going to try and bring it back online.
We've had a couple of big projects with the city. One is the Riverfront wastewater facility. The other one is the Rough Cut, where, there are things that occurred that we didn't know beforehand, which, where we just had cost estimates that were, mind-boggling. And I'm just wondering if, is this something with our processes? Was it, a case where people were just so determined to, move forward with these things? I'm trying to, it just seems like, we've had, for lack of a better word, a couple of boondoggles that, we've had to backtrack from, and one of them's cost the city a lot of money. Is there a lesson, are there some lesson learned for the council on, better evaluating these types of projects?
It's interesting. As I said before, one of the things that they used as a justification for building the plant was that upward trend in the BOD, biochemical oxygen demand. Realistically, if they had had somebody on staff here, or actually the engineers should have known as well, that could be rectified through operational changes and adjustments. But they didn't interpret it that way, and I can't tell you why they did or didn't. I can tell you that there were a few of us that were tried to get involved with this from the early on. I mean, I came on with the city in 2011. I went to one meeting and then I was told not to come back. And partly, I think it's because I asked too many questions. I don't know the reasoning or the mindset behind just continually driving this thing. I got actively involved in it just before it was voted on. And when I started looking at the numbers, it was obvious to me right away that there was a problem, and that the numbers that they had used to justify this were not really very good numbers. And so some of them you could say, okay, it was at that point in time, but it changed. For example, to give you an idea, we went from 1 million gallons per day of inflow to the Mingus wastewater treatment plant. Just before they approved it, it had dropped down to 800, or 0.8 MGD. That's a lot of free, it's almost, 40% of available space still left in the plant at that point in time, and they didn't take it into consideration. I know when I had mentioned it, I was actually told, look, how can we back away from this now? We've already presented it to the world. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I think it's ensuring that you have everybody involved that is willing to look at things objectively and not just getting focused on one thing and say, we need to do this, and let's do it no matter what. I've seen this at other companies that I've worked with, where they get so focused on a project that they fail to look at the bigger picture and all the data behind which it takes to really make a very good decision. And I think this is one of probably the best example I've seen of ignoring some of the things that were there.
Well, and I would think too that creating a wastewater treatment facility is not an everyday event, and you want to make sure that you're working with the greatest amount of expertise that you can possibly find. And it's concerning that they kind of switched gears in midstream.
They did.
And that the one designer from whatever wood thing
Hotel.
Moved over and still, maybe he wasn't the right guy for the job. Maybe these other potentially. And how do you evaluate that? That's a very difficult. It would be extremely difficult for me as a member of a council to evaluate the quality of work done by someone else through their own presentation. I mean, you need a lot of references before you launch into something like that. Who do you get to do something as unusual? Because, wastewater treatment plants are not an everyday construction project.
Oh, definitely. And I think we also had the mindset with some people internally of staff that were, build it and they will allow us to do it. And by that I mean DEQ. They were really betting that if they built this plant, this state-of-the-art plant with the advanced oxidation systems and everything else associated with the original design, that the water would be so clean that they would allow them to put it in the river. Mm-hmm. From a logic standpoint, you kind of say, well, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But from a reality sense, when you start talking about the environment, you can be too clean. And
I remember that, actually. I remember that as a point of positive discussion, positive presentation, that, hey, look, we'll have all this really clean water and we'll just do everything with it.
Exactly. And unfortunately, it doesn't always work when you start talking about discharging to rivers. And despite DEQ saying that, there was still this mindset among some staff that was, no. Once they see the plant, they're surely going to let us do this. And that was kind of a flawed kind of opinion to have. So,
Mr. Whitmer, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If the plant would have been built as designed, right?
Originally
Like,
designed.
Originally designed, would the only problem have been, where do we put the water?
Yeah.
So if this would have been built to spec, the only problem would have been, now what do we do with all this water?
If they had built it to the original design with AOX and the secondary filtration and everything else that was originally designed in it, I'm pretty confident that it would have operated very well.
Okay.
Problem is, they had no place to put it once they did it.
So let me ask you this, are we connected to anything now from here?
Nothing. It's
So there's
empty.
no connection? No, I mean, but is there a pipe?
We have a valve that we can easily turn and we can start sending water back up to the Mingus wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. And then my last question is really, I know we've talked about direct injection well site somewhere else, right? Because we're already planning on it.
Right.
Where are we planning on doing that?
The injection well that we have right now that's permitted is right at the Mingus wastewater treatment plant. And we have approval from the Department of Water Resources to obtain credits for recharging at that site.
So if the site would have been built to spec, we already had the pipeline, and if we had the direct injection well set up there, we could get credits from here if it worked in theory, right?
Right, but you'd be doing multiple treatments in, because this pipeline, treated water from here goes to lift station 3, which is right next door here, which goes to lift station 4, and then the Mingus to be retreated again. So you'd be treating it here, and then you'd be treating it Mingus again. And also...
You can't just go into the well site from up there?
No.
So this treatment wouldn't have been the same quality as the Mingus?
No, it's not. Well,
if it was built
let me
to spec.
qualify that statement. They both were permitted to and required to have produce effluent that was at A+ quality water. So they'd be both A+, but they'd have different chemistries.
So they couldn't go down to the same well?
Well, they potentially could. But the way the system is set up, when you go to lift station 4, it goes up to the inlet for the wastewater treatment plant to be processed. Virtually all the wastewater here goes through lift station 4 to the plant.
Could it be just, this is going to sound funny, straight piped?
No.
Straight piped to a well from here. If this site was operational right now, could it be straight piped up to a direct injection cell and thrown in the ground?
No.
No? That's what I'm having a hard time with. If it's the same quality of water, I don't...
Well, let me qualify that even more so. If we had an injection well that we could go straight to, then I would say yes, you could, if this plant was working and producing A+ quality water. Okay? But we don't have an injection well with a pipe that, that goes right to that. It goes up through lift station 4 through the treatment system itself. You can't pipe from that over to the injection well that we have up there currently. Plus, there's a limitation on how much we can inject up there on the well that we have. That one is only permitted at 300 acre-feet a year, which is exactly what this plant produces. Well, 330 here.
Okay. Just trying to wrap my brain around if it was working correctly, if it...
We would have to...
Because you talk about their reclaimed water being like gold.
It is.
Right? And I'm just trying to keep that option open if... I'm just trying to run my brain through it, but okay.
But right now, everything is going to Mingus and being treated, and eventually, either through direct potable reuse, which we're working in that direction, or through injection for recharge and recovery, that will come from the Mingus plant itself. Because there's nothing being treated down here at all.
Right. Okay, thanks.
I wanted to echo what the mayor started out with in terms of thanking you for doing this summary. I found the presentation and the memo very clear for the record, and I'm thanking you not just on behalf of the council, but on behalf of the community. When I was knocking on doors last year campaigning for a seat on council, residents did express concern to me and others about how had this happened. They were very concerned about, the basic loss of, $14 million plus, and they were wondering how could this have happened. And so I think by creating this summary, you have provided them with an answer to their question as to how did this happen, as well as what did we learn from this? What were the things that didn't go well? There were some things I'm sure that probably did go right, but other things that weren't done well, there are lessons to be learned going forward. And I think, so this is a very valuable exercise to have gone through. And thank you for that.
You're welcome. I would say that one of our, probably one of our biggest drawbacks at that point in time is we did not have a lot of expertise in-house in wastewater that were at the table. It was mostly from the design engineer and, just a few upper echelon folks here that really were not wastewater experts in-house. I believe right now we've got better quality people in wastewater than we've ever had in the history of Cottonwood. I mean, we've got people now with level 4, grade 4 licenses across the board. We've never had that in the history of Cottonwood. We just haven't had it. Debbie was fabulous, but she was a one-person show when it came to the wastewater treatment, and she, to her credit, she learned it on the job. But she wasn't involved in this either from the get-go. It was very limited in terms of people that were involved. It seemed to be more the design engineer and, you know, the director of staff that were involved, more so than the people that actually were the wastewater folks, unfortunately.
Any other comments? Thanks a lot, Mr. Whitmer.
I just have one
Sorry
comment.
for the length.
My only comment would be, I would appreciate the summary that he provided to be put somewhere where if somebody asks us, they could look on the website so that we could have that.
Sorry for the length of that, too. It was pretty lengthy.
Or we could just have Mr. Whitmer visit their house.
Okay, well, I'm good with that, too.
We can do that, too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Let me do one more thing, and then we will, yes. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Okay, next we have call to the public. At present, I have no requests for call to the public, so if you're okay with it, I will skip the admonition, because no one is requesting to speak. So, and there is another request that we take a 5-minute break. So if nobody has a problem with that, we're just going to take 5. We'll be right back. could continue, I will refrain from banging the gavel because it scares people, frankly. It's scary. With council's permission, do you mind if we head on to the resolution number 3366?
Can we approve the minutes?
We can come back to that.
Okay.
Can't we? Let's, I'm just trying to be considerate of Ms. Harwell and ask that we go ahead and move on with her appointment.
Yes.
Okay. So, from the consent agenda, I'm reading Resolution 3366, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, appointing Madeline Harwell as an administrative hearing officer for the city of Cottonwood and establishing her term of office.
So this matter's on the consent agenda, but I'll just briefly go over it for you. We had one administrative hearing officer who resigned, and we needed to fill that position. And so we advertised the position, and we did receive one application from Ms. Harwell. There was a panel of 4 of us. There was myself, Amanda Wilbur, Human Resources Director, Community Development Director Scott Ellis, and the Code Enforcement Officer. And we interviewed her, and we are all recommending her for appointment this evening. So I'll leave it with you in your hands for a motion.
Okay.
So I move to adopt resolution number 3366, appointing Madeline Harwell an administrative hearing officer for a 2-year term expiring September 16th, 2027.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
And if it'd be okay with you, I could bring her up and...
Certainly, yes.
To council. And this is Miss Madeline Harwell, your new
How do you do?
administrative hearing officer.
I really appreciate this, and I'm really looking forward to serve.
Thank you
very
for your
much.
willingness to do so.
But thank you for your patience tonight.
For what?
For your patience tonight.
Oh,
Although,
I just came in from overseas Sunday night. I got a little bit of jet lag, so I was struggling to stay awake, but it was very interesting.
Yes, but you know a lot about wastewater treatment that you did not know before, so good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we can go back to the approval of minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 2nd, 2025, and work session of September 9th, 2025.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay, under unfinished business, we have resolution number 3368, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, appointing David Chana, a member of the city's Historic Preservation Commission, and establishing his term of office and administration of the oath of office.
And tonight I bring you resolution number 3368 for your consideration and appointment of Mr. David Chana to the Historic Preservation Commission for a full 3-year term expiring September 16 of 2028. There are currently 3 vacancies on the Historic Preservation Commission, and following all of our recruitment efforts, we only received 1 application, so Mr. Chana did not go through the blind review process. However, he did come before council for an interview. All of council did recommend his appointment, so I would like to bring Mr. Chana up for appointment to the HPC this evening. And with that, I'll leave it for your consideration and discussion, unless you have questions for me.
Are there any questions? Are we satisfied that?
Well, before we get going, I am curious what you thought of the wastewater presentation.
What I thought of it?
No,
I thought he did a fantastic.
Well, I move to adopt resolution number 3368, appointing David Chana as a member of the Historic Preservation Commission and establishing his term of office.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. All right, and if I could take a moment to swear Mr. Chana in. Mr. Chana? Oh, here you are. And if you raise your right hand and state after me. I, David Chana,
I, David Chana,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution
do solemnly swear I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
and will support the city code and laws of the city of Cottonwood,
and will support the city code and laws of the city of Cottonwood,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties
of a member of the Historic Preservation Commission
of a member of the Historic Preservation Commission
according to the best of my abilities.
according to the best of my abilities.
I so do affirm.
I so do affirm.
Thank you. If you could sign right here.
Thank you.
And I have a certificate to give you too.
I also enjoyed the presentation on the water facility. Very illuminating.
Excellent. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Okay, still under unfinished business, the next resolution we're looking at is number 3369, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, appointing Felicia Coates, a member of the Board of Adjustment, and establishing her term of office and administration of the oath of office.
Thank you, Tammy Mays again. And tonight I bring before you resolution number 3369 for your consideration and possible appointment of Ms. Felicia Coates to the Board of Adjustment for a 3-year term which will expire on September 16th of 2028. There are currently 3 vacancies on the Board of Adjustment. Following interviews by council on September 2nd, council did recommend Ms. Coates for appointment to the Board of Adjustments. Also, because we only had 1 applicant, she did not go through the blind review. Let's see, tonight I am recommending Ms. Coates to be appointed to the Board of Adjustments and for council to adopt resolution number 3369. And with that, I'll leave it to your discussion and consideration.
I move to adopt resolution number 3369, appointing Felicia Coates as a member of the Board of Adjustment and establishing her term of office.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
All right, and if I could ask Ms. Coates to be sworn in. Raise your right hand. I, Felicia Coates,
I, Felicia Coates,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
and I will support the city code and laws of the city of Cottonwood,
and I will support the city code and laws of the city of Arizona, Cottonwood, Arizona,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same,
and defend them against all enemies,
defend them against all enemies,
foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
as a member of the Board of Adjustment,
as a member of the Board of Adjustment,
according to the best of my abilities.
according to the best of my abilities.
I so do affirm.
I so do affirm.
Thank you. And sign mine. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the items on the consent agenda, which include a new series 010 beer and wine store liquor license application submitted by Maria Danielle Burgess, agent for Circle K store, number 9614, located at 1150 AZ 89A. Number 2 is consideration and approval of the Second Amendment to agreement for option to lease real estate between the City of Cottonwood and Verde Plaza 2 Associates of Cottonwood LLC. Third is resolution number 3363, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the City of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, approving and accepting Federal Aviation Administration. Oh, we're not doing that. Is that right?
Madam Mayor, we'll need to pull that one and address it separately. The resolution is not part of that, and as Mr. Gaylord pointed out, the suggested motion also includes, so it can't be approved as part of the consent. We'll need to address it separately with a revised motion.
Right. I'm going to skip that then and go to number 5, which is resolution number 3367, resolution of the mayor and city council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, setting the compensation of the city's administrative hearing officers. And number 6 is consideration of approval of the Local First AZ annual program funding. I did not read I'll go back and say that these items are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Are there any items that anyone requests be pulled? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items number 1, 2, 5, and 6, as you read.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Okay, moving right along to new business. We have one item under new business.
Excuse me. Madam Mayor, we need to take up the airport item.
Okay.
Council, again, as I stated, through the amended agenda and things like that, we determined we did not need a resolution to authorize acceptance of the FAA grant. So the actual item before you tonight is just authorization to accept it and authorization for me to execute that agreement. I actually received an email during this meeting from the FAA that said they're a little delayed. We can expect it on the 18th, and so we will execute the final version at that time. So the motion that needs to be made should not include the resolution, just simply authorization to accept and authorization for me to execute the agreement once it's received.
Okay, I move that we authorize the grant agreement as we receive it. Can someone second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, now new business. So this is public hearing and adoption of City of Cottonwood Municipal Code text amendment to Chapter 2.110 Historic Preservation Commission. Good evening, Ms. Hayden. I started to say good morning. It's been a long meeting already, I guess.
I only have a couple slides for you, just navigating to them here. I'm Tina Hayden with Community Development, also designated as a Historic Preservation Staff Liaison, presenting Ordinance 764, which is Municipal Code Title 2, Chapter 110, Text Amendment for Historic Preservation Commission. The purpose of this text amendment is to reduce project delays due to potential lack of quorum and ensure that the HP Commission has opportunities to advise council on historic preservation matters. At the August HP Commission meeting, my commission did recommend approval of the proposed text amendment. They did have an additional request that council consider expanding the quantity of commissioners who could reside outside of the city limits. So staff does have two versions presented to you. I'll go over those in detail. Moving further on the timeline, we are here tonight having the public hearing, possible adoption by council of this ordinance, and then in 30 days on October 16th, if this is adopted, Ordinance 764 will be in effect. So the summary of changes for both versions is that we did some grammar and formatting changes. Specifically for section 0300, we added that the HP Commission has the power and duty to make recommendations to council on historic preservation matters. In section 040A, we modified the number of members from 7 to 5, and we further modified the number of members who must reside within the city limits from 5 to 3. And then section 060B, we modify the quorum count from 4 to 3 members. For version 2, all of those previously stated changes are in effect, except for section 040A. We increase the quantity of commissioners who may reside outside of the city limits from 2 to 3, and inversely decrease those who should reside within the city limits. This is the end of my presentation. I just have two closing statements. The first is with your most recent appointment of Historic Preservation Commissioner Chana. That should not impact that. This text amendment will not be impacted or will not impact his appointment. We will have a full roster of 5 commissioners with Chana added on. Secondly, I'd like to say that staff is not in support of version 2, which would have the number of commissioners who reside outside the city limits exceed the number of commissioners who reside within. That ends my presentation. Ready for any questions you may have.
Can you go?
I agree with staff.
Can you go back? No, one more. Where you were?
One more?
No, I'm sorry, the other way. Because I'm trying to figure out the numbers here. So the .04A, modify the number of members from 7 to 5. So you're reducing it?
Yep.
And
Yep.
modify the members who must reside within the city limits from 5 to 3. So then 2 would have, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I will also agree that I'm not in, version 2 is not for me.
Yeah, I'm in favor of version 1.
Yeah.
version 2 just opens up too many possibilities of, then just anybody can have control over historical preservation questions, whether they reside in the city or not, and they need to remain city-focused, I think.
Agreed.
So,
Version 1.
So, Mayor Shaw, Council, in the staff report, I have 2 different motions for you, one indicating version 1. So I just wanted you to take extra care when reading that motion, that you're getting the version 1 update in.
Well, I move to adopt ordinance 764 with the reference document titled 2025 Municipal Code 2.110 Historic Preservation Commission Version 1 Update.
Second.
can we do a roll call vote on that, please?
Absolutely. Councilmember DeWillis?
Yes.
Councilmember Dowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coates?
Yes.
And Mayor Shaw?
Yes.
And that motion carries.
Okay. Before moving on, may I read the resolutions that we have approved this evening into the record? Under unfinished business, resolution number 3368, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, appointing David Chana, a member of the city's Historic Preservation Commission, and establishing his term of office, administration of oath of office. Resolution number 3369, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, appointing Felicia Coates, a member of the Board of Adjustment, and establishing her term of office, administration of oath of office. Then under consent agenda, the first resolution is resolution number 3366, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, appointing Madeline Harwell as an administrative hearing officer for the city of Cottonwood and establishing her term of office. Resolution number 3367, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Arizona, setting the compensation of the city's administrative hearing officers. And then under new business, we have the ordinance number 764, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, declaring the document titled 2025 Municipal Code 2.110 Historic Preservation Commission Version 1 Update as a public record, adopting the same by reference, and amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Cottonwood as set forth therein, providing for severability and providing for penalties. By golly, I believe that's it. So next is council member request for future agenda items.
I would like to add one that would have us go into an executive session at the next regular council meeting to discuss a lawsuit. Do I have to be specific?
It's up to you, Councilmember.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right.
I'll second it.
Yeah, okay.
Do we need to vote on it?
Not really. It's for a future agenda item. Do we need to vote on that?
I think we're, by our code, I think we're required to.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anything else? Any other?
So I just want to get alignment. We had a great conversation tonight about the parking plan. Just want to make sure that my understanding is correct. It's going to be rolled into the Old Town Master Plan. And I know there's a presentation on the Old Town Master Plan on scheduled for October 7th. And thank you for this, future agenda item matrix. I just want to make sure that I think there's plenty of discussion left to be had, on the parking plan, and I'm sure we will on a master plan. I just want to make sure that we set up I propose that we do a work session to discuss, and, especially, specific to our discussion tonight on the parking plan, I'd like to have some sense on the options that were presented tonight, what the cost, what the estimated costs would be, and, staff's, recommendations regarding these options.
Sure, yes. I think I'd mentioned to each of you that the calendar, as a good kind of tracking tool, will be flexible, and that's one of the things that we've already agreed is going to happen when we bring the housing work session. That same work session will include the Old Town Master Plan, which now will add this parking element and allow council to engage with staff on options and some direction that you'd like to go, and then we'll bring the strategic plan separate from that.
Okay. Anything else for future agenda? Last but not least is the claims report for September 16th, 2025. I will accept a motion to...
I move to approve the claims report for September 16th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
What? Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And we are so adjourned.
I was hoping we were going to get a,